Leadership and culture are two sides of the same coin. That there is no culture without the leadership that is exhibited in an organization or a team. So, if the structure doesn't change, it is very difficult for culture to change or teams to do something differently. I think it's important to see how culture evolves, right? It's not a static construct. And teams, as they work with each other over a period of time, the culture evolves. Paying attention to these four: the goals, roles, processes of working, and the interpersonal relationships can really help a team create an effective team environment.
Hi, Gunjan, and welcome to this conversation.
Hi, Sai. Thank you for having me for this conversation. Looking forward to it.
I'm excited because we are talking on a topic that is interesting, which is leaders and their teams and team culture. So let's just dive straight in, Gunjan. My first question that I wanted to ask you and talk about is, at a very high level in your work with teams, what do you see as places where leaders falter in paying attention to shaping their team's culture? And if you can just pull out from your experience with teams and the work that you do, love to hear more.
Yeah. I think very important and relevant question when we're thinking about teams and leadership and culture. And I'm greatly inspired by Edgar Schein, who is one of the founders of really organizational psychology. And he said something very interesting, that leadership and culture are two sides of the same coin. That there is no culture without the leadership that is exhibited in an organization or a team. So maybe one of the places where leaders falter is to not see culture building as their role. And think it's maybe for HR to do build culture, or it will happen by the way, and not see it as something that they really drive. So leaders drive culture, period. And for leaders to really see that and not be blind to it.
Right. I love that statement. Yeah, leaders drive culture, and the fact that it's two sides of the same coin. So when you think of some of the things that leaders can do to shape their team's culture, what things come to your mind? What actions come to your mind?
I think here I want to take a bit of a digression, if I may, to really say that at different stages of an organization or a team's development, leaders may have to do different things as far as culture is concerned, right? So we could probably think of it as three stages. Although there are many models which talk about organization life cycle in different ways, but really the stage of creating an organization or a team, then building and sustaining it over a certain period. And then sometimes there is a need to change because your context has changed. So really evolving or changing the team. And leaders will have to see their role differently when they're creating. It's their energy that they are transmitting to the team. So to really see, what am I doing? What are my beliefs and values? My assumptions, which are getting transmitted to the team. Because as the team then goes into a building and sustaining mode, they become the models, mental models for the team. And that is I think the power that leaders carry, that their models become the teams or organizations' models over a period of time. So if they are not clarifying that for themselves, it will get established in a certain way. And sometimes leaders have to become change agents. Yeah, because your context has changed. Maybe something dysfunctional has crept into the team, and they need to change that. And that would be the role of the leader, as from creator of culture to sustainer of culture, uh, to somebody who's a change agent or evolving the culture of the organization. So that's how I would see what leaders need to do at different times of a team's or organization's journey.
Yeah, I see that so relevant also in the work, when I work with teams, Gunjan, because it's almost like saying different life stages require us to do different things.
Yeah.
And similarly, different stages of teams and their life requires that a leader takes cognizance of now what, and what do I need to communicate differently, and what do I need to be different,
Different.
just
Yeah.
in the leader's own style.
Yeah. For example, when, like I was saying, at the beginning of a organization, a startup, it's the leader's energy really which drives the organization, right?
Yes.
But when you are a mature organization, leaders also need to sometimes take a step back and let the teams or other members take the driving seat. Some leaders find it very difficult to do that. Then it becomes a culture of whatever the leader says goes, and teams end up feeling quite disempowered. So really to be cognizant of, where am I, where is this organization, and how do I need to be different, and what do I need to do different?
Yeah, great. So, Gunjan, sometimes there are teams that become very unhealthily political, competitive, maybe even aggressive. What inputs would you have for leaders who are seeing this in their environment, and how can they handle that, and what could be useful at this time?
Hmm. I'm going back to the first point that we were talking about, that leaders drive cultures. So usually when we get a request, right? Okay, the team is like this, do something with the team,
Yes.
right? And very often my conversation with leaders is to say, how come it has become like this, right? So I think for leaders to do first some introspection to say, what has been in the system and what has been in their leadership, uh, that this is how the team is working. But having said that, uh, if this is what is happening, then, like I was saying, arbitrarily leaders can't change culture. Like I can't come one day and say, okay, now we want to change this. These are behaviors, right? These are ways of being. Uh, I think what leaders can do is a couple of things. One, reinforce the behaviors they want, right? So if I want my team to be collaborative and not competitive, I really have to then um, call out behaviors which are collaborative, maybe reward behaviors that are collaborative, and have lesser tolerance for behaviors that I do not want to see. So that's one thing, right? Really reinforce behaviors that you want to see in the team. The second thing would be to also look at what are the structures that may be leading to these behaviors, because there is this very famous saying in organization behavior that structures drive behavior, right? So can leaders pay attention to the structures and policies and processes of working and how they might be bringing about these behaviors? If we have time, I can share an example
Please do.
Of when we're working with organizations which want to move to an agile way of working, right? Where it's about collaboration, self-organized teams taking ownership. But the organization structure is very hierarchical. right? Whereas what you want to build is a networked, self-organized team. So if the structure doesn't change, it is very difficult for culture to change or teams to do something differently, right? If my performance is still going to be measured on my individual contribution, but you're expecting me to be a team player, it is a bit difficult. So we also ask organizations to look at what are the systems and structures they need to create and change, which can help them bring about a change in culture.
I just want to summarize what you were saying, because there seem to be two important points here. One is for a leader to begin asking what has been their role in encouraging a culture that is political or loaded in any other way negatively. Yeah, so in a way the leader is complicit in creating this, and that
you did in some
very powerful. It's a powerful question that a leader can ask. And the second thing that you've highlighted is the need to pay attention to other processes and structures that actually encourage a set of behaviors, and changing those processes and structures can systemically encourage the more positive kind of behaviors in teams.
Yeah, and that's something that I like to bring in my work with teams and leaders, is to not just see it as an individual phenomenon or individual behavior, but to really take a more systemic view of what is it in the system that's also contributing to why people are behaving this way. And that's an important lens for leaders to have, especially to keep the whole system in mind, yeah, and not just make it a interpersonal or personal problem.
Absolutely. And I think for all of us who work as facilitators and coaches, of leaders, how important it is to bring the systemic lens to the conversations that we have with leaders. Yeah. So Gunjan, just a last point that I want to talk about before we close is, when teams get put together for the long term, teams that work for months and sometimes years together, what do you see as really important for leaders to pay attention to keep motivation and effectiveness of such teams high?
I think it's important to see how culture evolves, right? It's not a static construct. And teams, as they work with each other over a period of time, the culture evolves, and it just happens by the way how we're working with each other. Yeah, what beliefs we have about working with each other. What are some of our values that we hold close to ourselves, and what are some of our basic assumptions? Yeah, really. Which may not be very articulated, but they show up in how teams function, right? So for a team which has been working for a while, I think what's really important is to be mindful of this intentionality of creating a culture, right? And not just let it happen. Yeah. Because when that happens, sometimes dysfunctional behaviors or culture also creeps in. So that would be one thing for leaders and teams to be mindful of, to really be intentional and keep asking themselves, what kind of a culture are we creating, right? And few things help in that. One is to keep an eye on, are we aligned on our purpose? Mm-hmm. Do we know why we are together? Yeah, because it's not static. Over the years, months, that will change. Do people have clarity on roles? Are we having conversations around, whose role is what?
Yeah.
And then do we have clarity around processes of working with each other? Or at least we are having conversations around it. What's working for us? What's not working for us? Yeah. Very often when people do what's become fashionable now, it's retrospectives. Yeah. It's all about what have we done? Like, it's like oh, we did this, activities. We don't really reflect on how have we worked with each other. Yeah, what have we created in this process of working with each other? So I think that's an important question to keep alive. And then, of course, what kind of interpersonal relationships are operating in the team, and how have we nurtured that? So paying attention to these four.
Yeah.
The goals, roles, processes of working, and the interpersonal relationships can really help a team create an effective team environment.
Sure. And I also want to point out that I think all of this that you talked about, these four pieces, are very grounded in conversations that teams have with each other, and leaders initiate and lead those conversations also, right? Because each of these are conversations that, a long-term team will have to periodically go into. And so I'm really thinking how important it is for leaders to, set up some sort of rhythm of revisiting each of these aspects, especially in long-term teams.
In long-term teams, yeah.
Because each of this is a very powerful conversations, and the leader can be very intentional about not just staying with business as usual conversations, but allow a carving out of time, and space for teams to visit the underlying aspects of, how we are working together. And each of these are a very vital conversation then.
Yeah, maybe that's the last point perhaps in this is for leaders to be quite clued in about cultural dynamics and not just the overt, right? There's something which is visible, we all can see.
Yeah.
There is also something which is not seen, but we feel it. We experience it, right? So our leaders even clued into what's not said in this organization.
Yeah.
What's not talked about. What's the elephant in the room. And encouraging teams to have those conversations really is a way to, be effective in the long run as people work with each other.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Gunjan, for this has been a rich conversation. And I'm just thinking that, a thread that feels binding right from the first part of our conversation to now is how important it is for leaders to own the culture piece, and for leaders to be intentional about, the actions and conversations that they invite. And the last point that you just left us with, which is look beneath the surface. There is so much that is available as data and, reading into and sensing into not just what is overt, but what is also beneath. And that may give a leader so much of information as to what they can do next for their effectiveness of their teams, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Gunjan. And I'm just going to put out this wish that we're going to do a few more conversations, around teams and possibly specific topics and aspects that would be really helpful for us to talk about. So I look forward to talking to you again.
Absolutely, Sai. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Gunjan. Bye.
All right. Bye.